At first, the changes are almost imperceptible. People feel a strange softness underfoot, as if the ground has become slightly yielding, like rubber after rain. The asphalt springs back, and stone crumbles at the mere touch. This isn't destruction or erosion, matter itself is losing density. Scientists are recording the impossible, atoms aren't disappearing, but the bonds between them are weakening. The Earth no longer holds itself together as it once did. After a few days, the effects become obvious. Sidewalks sag, buildings begin to slowly sink into the soil, as if standing on viscous liquid. It's not a sinkhole, it's a drowning. Houses don't collapse, they sink floor by floor. People run outside, watching as familiar streets disappear without noise or explosion, dissolving into the void, as if the world is forgetting its own shape. Geology ceases to function as a science. Mountains lose their rigidity, their slopes spread, their peaks sink. Rocks turn to dust, which doesn't fall but slowly vanishes into thin air. Matter ceases to behave like matter. The planet seems to enter an intermediate state between existence and non-existence, where form is no longer necessary. Gravity weakens. People notice that their jumps are getting higher, objects are falling more slowly. At first, this seems like a relief, almost a gift. But then panic sets in. If the Earth loses mass, it loses its ability to hold on to an atmosphere. The air becomes thin. Breathing requires effort. The planet is no longer a reliable support for life. The oceans behave strangely. Water doesn't ripple or evaporate, it collapses. The seafloor loses density, and entire masses of water disappear downwards, into the void where light doesn't penetrate. Ships hang in the air before slowly following the vanishing surface. Coastlines vanish, leaving dry, cracked basins. Ecosystems collapse silently. Forests are sinking, their roots no longer holding on to the soil. Trees fall not because of the wind, but because the ground is no longer solid. Animals lose their bearings, migrations become chaotic. Life cannot adapt to a world where the very surface of existence disappears. Cities are turning into traps. Foundations are dissolving, bridges are sagging and disappearing in whole spans. Subways are disappearing into the void along with the trains. People are living on the upper floors until they, too, begin to collapse. Civilization, built on solid ground, is helpless without it. The economy is the first to collapse. Real estate loses its meaning, resources disappear literally underfoot. Money no longer guarantees anything, you can only own what has not yet dissolved. People exchange knowledge, skills, and time. It is not property that acquires value, but the ability to hold on in a world that is gradually ceasing to be real. Science works without ceasing. Laboratories are moved to higher ground, then to artificial platforms, then into the air. Scientists discover that the Earth's dissolution is occurring steadily, as if reality itself is losing its resolution. It's not a catastrophe, but a process. Not an explosion or an end, a slow erasure. The most terrifying discovery is that it cannot be stopped, because the cause is not within the planet, but deeper, in the very laws of physics. Religions are experiencing a rebirth. Some declare the Earth's dissolution a punishment, others a transition to a new level of existence. Temples are filled with people seeking meaning, not salvation. Prayers ring out over the voids where cities once stood. Faith ceases to be a consolation, it becomes an attempt to come to terms with a vanishing world. National borders disappear faster than continents. Territories no longer matter when the land itself is precarious. Armies are useless, there's no one to fight and nothing to hold on to. Power shifts to those skilled in organizing survival: engineers, logisticians, pilots, architects of the void. Politics becomes a matter of coordination, not control. People begin to build upward. Suspended cities emerge, supported by cables, aerostats, and orbital structures. Architecture becomes temporary by definition. Every house is designed with the expectation that it will have to be abandoned. The Earth is no longer perceived as a foundation, it becomes a dangerous environment, like the ocean or space. Human psychology is changing. People no longer plan for decades. The future shrinks to weeks, sometimes hours. The moment becomes precious. Relationships become more intense, more honest, and shorter. Love accelerates, friendships compress in time. A vanishing world cannot tolerate postponement. Children born in the era of dissolution are not afraid of the void. For them, instability is the norm. They play on platforms above the abyss, unaware that the ground was once solid. Their thinking has adapted to a vanishing world. Perhaps they are the first true inhabitants of a new reality where form is not necessary. Experiments with escape begin. Scientists launch stations beyond Earth, attempting to save culture, knowledge, and memory. For the first time, humanity is preparing not for colonization, but for evacuation from its own world. The planet is no longer a home, it is becoming an archive, slowly erased. But not everyone wants to leave. Millions remain. They say that if the Earth is disappearing, then we must disappear with it. They don't run from the end, they observe it. People sit on the edges of dissolving continents and watch as the world slowly lets go of itself. The dissolution accelerates. Continents no longer break apart, they lose their outlines entirely. Maps become useless within days. Geography becomes a memory. People stop talking about where, only when remains. Time becomes the only stable coordinate in a world where space no longer holds shape. Gravity almost disappears. Objects float, people tie themselves with ropes to keep from flying into the void. Ordinary movements become dangerous. Sleep requires body stability. Even breathing feels different, the air slowly slips away, as if it doesn't want to stay near the dying planet. The last animals disappear first. Not with a scream or panic, they simply cease to exist. The ecosystem doesn't collapse, it dissolves along with its foundation. People realize, the Earth isn't dying, it's as if it's being abolished. As if someone is slowly erasing layer after layer, leaving no trace of destruction. A new life begins on the orbital stations. They maintain artificial gravity, the familiar day-night cycles, and replicas of cities. But many feel a strange emptiness. Safe, but without ground beneath their feet, people understand, home isn't a place, but a sense of stability found nowhere else. The last patches of Earth become a place of pilgrimage. People gather there not for salvation, but to say goodbye. They tell stories, leave traces, write names on matter that will vanish in hours. This isn't mourning, it's an acknowledgement that the world was, and that's enough. At some point, the dissolution reaches the core. The planet loses its last solidity. The Earth doesn't explode or split, it simply ceases to exist. Where an entire world once was, a void remains, filled with the memories and orbits of those who have passed on. Humanity survives, but is forever changed. Having lost their planet, people no longer perceive reality as a given. Everything becomes temporary, fragile, and valuable precisely because it can disappear. And perhaps the most important lesson of the dissolved Earth is simple: existence doesn't have to be eternal to be meaningful. People are beginning to notice that not only matter is disappearing, but history itself. Old buildings dissolve faster than new ones, as if the past has lost its right to exist. Monuments crumble first, archives crumble to dust, manuscripts turn into transparent shadows. The future remains, but the past is literally erased. For the first time, humanity sees the planet's memory dying and understands: if matter disappears, then the meaning of past centuries disappears with it. Religions are changing. Gods no longer dwell in the sky or underground, they disappear along with matter. Temples become transparent, altars collapse into the void. Priests speak of the final test, but the words, like everything else, lose their weight. People begin to pray not for salvation, but for the preservation of form, at least for one more day. Faith becomes a desperate attempt to hold reality together. The borders of countries physically disappear. Walls, fences, border guard towers dissolve as if they had never existed. Maps become useless, the lines on them no longer align with reality. People realize there's nothing left to divide. As the very ground shifts beneath their feet, the concepts of property, territory, and power lose their meaning. For the first time, the world becomes united not by agreement, but by necessity.